So what you are looking at is a map of Washington, D.C. if it were to be hit by a nuclear ICBM, one of the strongest ones, the Satan II, that is currently held by Russia. Now, I've got new information that has just been released by the U.S. government. I'm going to be sharing with you the latest on this. Now, take a look. This article is going to be releasing some of the maps. Nuclear bomb map shows the impacts of Russian weapons on major U.S. cities. I'm going to be going through all of these as we're hearing that there is a list of major cities that will likely be hit by nuclear weapons. These will be the primary targets of Russia if they were to strike. So I'm going to be going through this. And in addition to this, I also shared with you in a previous upload that right now we are hearing that FEMA, the U.S. government, has actually released an updated nuclear guide to prevent radiation exposure. We heard that the UK is telling their citizens to get ready. Various nations, now the United States, is letting their citizens know, here are some updates, some guides. If we were to have a nuclear explosion, a bomb to go off in the U.S., here is what you need to take into consideration. And in addition to that, nuclear apocalypse map shows the best and worst U.S. states to live in case of Armageddon. They're saying Vermont is where you want to be. Hawaii, you pretty much have got no chance. So I'm going to be covering all of these updates for you, letting you know what cities to watch out for, how far these blasts are going to reach. If you're in New York, California, Los Angeles, San Diego, Houston, Chicago, a lot of these cities are on the list. I'm going to be covering all of the maps for you. You can see how far the blasts are. You're going to be able to see, is where I live, my house, in the middle of these blasts. Also, they're saying if we do have a warning coming out, you have about 15 minutes to decide what it is you're going to do if you can get out of the blast radius. I'm going to share with you all the latest information coming out. And like I said, these updates just recently coming out in the past couple of days. I know a lot of people saying we've had these updates for quite some time. There's a lot of information out there that's old. These are new ones that have now been recently released with everything that's currently going on. But let us pray that nothing goes this route of all-out nuclear war. However, I'm going to make sure that you have the latest information so you know exactly what is going on. And if you appreciate that, do me a favor. If you take a quick second, hit the like button for me. So we've got 2,200 people live with me, almost 300 likes. If we get half the room to hit the like button, help spread this out further so more people can get the latest information. Somebody's saying they'd rather be vaporized. Yes, I'm going to be sharing with you the circles where it says that if it hits, you will be vaporized. You don't have to worry about it. And also, in addition to that, to stay up to date, hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. Why not? And in addition to that, somebody was asking about resources. They're linked down below. Somebody was asking about my microphone. Yeah, if you are looking to get Black Friday deals on setups, if you're trying to start a YouTube channel or just trying to stock up on supplies, and various Amazon links down below so you can get access. Now's the time to do it with the sales that are currently going on if you wanted to stock up on things. But let me go ahead and get you guys caught up on the latest as to what is going on so that way you can see it for yourself with all the warnings that are currently going out. So first, let's go ahead and start off with this Washington, D.C. map so you can see exactly what is taking place here. So this map that you are looking at, the inner yellow circle is the fireball radius in which everything would be vaporized by intense heat rising to millions of degrees Fahrenheit. This would reach about 15.1 square miles. And again, just to clarify a little bit more detail on this, they are saying that this is estimations on cities. If Russia were to attack with a R-36M2, also known as the SS-18 Satan, this is one of the largest and most powerful heavy intercontinental ballistic missile ICBMs that has ever been built. And they're saying these would likely be the ones that could hit the United States and how far it could reach. And they're saying these are multiple times more powerful than what we saw dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So this map shows first that inner yellow circle. That is the vaporization zone. Millions and millions of degrees Fahrenheit, 15.1 square miles. Everything in that inner circle vaporized. That is the fireball blast that you would see take place, and then you would see that mushroom cloud come out of there. Now, the more moderate blast damage radius is the inner gray circle, covering 442 square miles of blast. That would destroy residents, buildings, and probably cause widespread fire all throughout that inner gray circle. Now, anyone within 2,360 square miles of the explosion, that is the thermal radiation radius. It is the wide orange circle, and you would be at risk of suffering third-degree burns throughout your skin. But it says it's often painless because they destroy the pain nerves, but you very likely will not last too much longer after that due to radiation exposure and burns, which can cause severe scarring, disablement, require amputation. Now, within the light blast damage radius, this is the outermost circle, the wider gray circle, 3,490 square miles from the blast. Glass windows would shatter, and this would be expected to break. That could cause injuries. So you want to be out of the yellow areas. The gray area, you will still feel the impacts of it, but you won't feel the necessary damage that would cause life-ending issues. So this particular one for Washington, D.C. and the U.S. Capitol, where there's given about 24-hour period, there would be 6 million people within any 24-hour period that would get the full blast range of all 4 circles of the simulation detonation. 1.6 million people would lose their lives. 2 million people would sustain injuries. The fireball radius would include all of Capitol Hill. So that is for Washington, D.C. Now, in addition to that, let's go ahead and take a look at New York. So let me know in the comments, do you live in any of these major cities? Do you live in New York? We're going to be covering New York now in detail for you. So New York here, you can see in the New York during any given 24-hour period, and you can see this will reach all the way out to Long Island, 16.2 million people on average would be present in a full blast range. An estimated 5.4 million people would lose their lives, 5.6 would suffer injuries. The light blast damage range would extend all the way to New Brunswick and Stamford for New York. Next up, we have Los Angeles. Los Angeles, some 2.7 million people would lose their lives. 4.3 million would be injured. In any given 24-hour period, there are on average 12 million people in the full blast range, all 4 circles of the simulated detonation. Thermal radiation would hit Santa Monica, Calabasas, Long Beach, and parts of Pomona as well. Next up, we have Chicago. Chicago, in any given 24-hour period, there are on average 7.6 million people in the full blast range of the radius of the simulated detonation for the city of Chicago. There would be an estimated of 1.9 fatalities, 2.5 million injuries, 1.9 million fatalities, 2.5 million injuries. About half of the blast's total area would reach across Lake Michigan. So this one you can see, would go out and would poison the water as well. Up next, we have Houston, Texas. This is my neck of the woods here. In Houston, where there are on average 5.3 million people in the full blast range of all 4 circles of this simulated detonation at any given 24-hour period, 1.2 million people would lose their lives. 1.9 million would sustain injuries. And in case you're wondering, I would, where I'm at right now, I would be vaporized. I'm right in the heart of the city. I do have some other locations probably that I could go to. I see the Woodlands is out of that blast range. But where I'm currently at, I would have 15 minutes to try to get out. And I don't know if you guys have been in Houston City before, but 15 minutes, there's no chance from where I'm at to get out of the city. So if you are in the heart of a city, you have got to think to yourself, okay, what am I going to do? And I've only got 15 minutes, they're saying. Now, in addition to that, I'm also going to be covering for you guys what FEMA is saying. The government has released an update as to what you need to take into consideration and the safest states. I'm going to show you that map as well. But let's go ahead and continue on to the next city so you can see an update here. Phoenix, Arizona, and you can see just pretty much all of Phoenix is just gone. Some 972,000 people would lose their lives in Phoenix. 1.4 would suffer injuries. In any given 24-hour period, there are on average 3.8 million people in the full blast range of this simulated detonation in Phoenix. Up next on the list, we have Philadelphia. An estimated 1.6 million people would lose their lives in Philadelphia, where there are on average 5.9 million people in the full blast range of all 4 circles of the simulated detonation. In any 24-hour period, some 1.9 million people would suffer injuries in the city of Philadelphia. Up next, we have here San Antonio. And San Antonio, you can also see just pretty much engulfed by this, much smaller than some of the other cities we've covered. There would be an average of 2 million people in the blast range of all 4 circles of the simulated detonation in any 24-hour given period in San Antonio, where 761,000 people would lose their lives, 754 people would be injured. Up next, we have San Diego. Some 968,000 people would lose their lives in San Diego, while 1.6 million would sustain injuries in any given 24-hour period. There are an average of 4.5 million people in the full blast range of all 4 circles of this simulated detonation, and you can see this would reach all the way down into Mexico. They would feel this blast if it were to hit. And up next we have Dallas, and you can see, wow, this reaches all the way out to Fort Worth. They would feel this blast from this type of nuclear bomb, which, just to clarify again, multiple times more powerful than what we saw with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The technology that Russia possesses, and the United States for that matter, is multiple times more than what we saw with the last time that nuclear weapons were used. Dallas, in any given 24-hour period, there are around 5.5 million people in the full blast range of all 4 circles of the simulated detonation in Dallas. 1 million people would lose their lives. 1.9 million people would suffer injuries in this scenario in Dallas. Now, things are currently escalating with all of the conflict that is going on, and we have heard that they have actually released, the U.S. government, FEMA, has released updated information on what it is that you need to take into consideration as these blasts, if they were to occur and unfold. And again, these are not all of the cities. These are just some that they have done demonstrations to show you what it would look like if you reside in these cities. Now, let me know, do you live in any of these cities that I've covered? Again, I have covered for you Washington, D.C., New York, Los Angeles. I covered Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, Phoenix, Arizona, San Antonio, and San Diego. Drop a 1 if you live in any of these cities. Drop a 2 if you live in a different city. Let me know in the comments, but we're hearing that these are some of the main ones that they felt were so significant to take a look at, that they've actually mapped out what the nuclear blast would look like if these ones were hit. So if you are in those cities, drop a 1. If you're not, drop a 2. And again, just to clarify, these are not all of them on the list. I see people mentioning other cities, and yes, as we also saw in that state map as well, they said that if you're in Hawaii, that's probably the last state you want to be if we have nuclear fallout, because the devastation is going to be terrible, and you're going to be literally on an island while the fallout is happening. It's going to be really bad. You don't want to be in Hawaii, they said, when the nuclear apocalypse hits. Now, while you're dropping those 1s and 2s, do me a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the like button if you appreciate the updates. Also, thank you for the super chat. Righteous for Jesus. Steve, I didn't like you not being on yesterday. Oh, yeah. Family and I went out of town with some friends for a little bit. We didn't get back in time for me to do any updates, but there was a lot that unfolded, so I'm going to be getting you guys caught up. Don't worry. I'm going to be making up for it here in some videos, because there is a lot going on right now with all the conflicts taking place around the world. And we're hearing that there are potentially some ceasefire agreements that could be underway, but we got to see what is going to be unfolding here. Now, let's take a look at this information coming out regarding the radiation guide from FEMA. So again, just to clarify, in case you missed it, we have heard that in the past couple of days, FEMA has recently done an update on their nuclear guide to prevent radiation. Now, we had been discussing this here on the channel, saying, when is the United States going to be, giving some updates to its people? We're seeing the UK, Sweden, Finland, Norway, all of them saying, hey, here's some pamphlets on what to do in case there's nuclear fallout. We're concerned about World War III, nuclear war. Putin said this is global war. A former defense minister for Ukraine said this is World War III. We heard that Germany is preparing to send over 800,000 NATO troops to Ukraine to help fight against Russia, because they said they believe we are currently in World War III right now. And a lot of people are saying, hey, Joe Biden, the U.S., what's the deal? What is going on here with preparing our citizens? So let me go ahead and share with you the latest that has come out, as we do have an update regarding what to do in case of a fallout. Now, this article says, with Russian President Vladimir Putin threatening to use nuclear weapons in the country's war against Ukraine, and with the Middle East conflicts involving various groups, the U.S. and its European allies are informing citizens how to respond should a nuclear attack occur. The Federal Emergency Agency, or FEMA, has compiled a 258-page planning guidance for response to a nuclear detonation that begins, if a nuclear detonation occurred in an American city, it would be one of the most catastrophic incidences in the U.S. that it has ever experienced. Now, in this latest advice to be prepared for a nuclear explosion, FEMA says a nuclear explosion may occur with a few minutes warnings or without any warning at all. Now, what I read from this particular guide, but I'm not going to go through the entire guide for you. It is pretty lengthy. I have hyperlinks down below. They said they anticipate that you'll probably have about 15 minutes. Once notifications or whatever go out, you'll probably have 15 minutes to figure out what to do. So again, look at those blast radius maps that I just shared with you, and you can kind of determine what you're going to do. Now, so for me, I'm literally in the heart of Houston. I'm right in the center of the city, so 15 minutes, I'm not going to make it. I don't know. I've got to either figure out, I've got to use one of my other resources outside of the city, or I don't know, or I just got to realize, hey, it's time to be, I will totally be vaporized in my current location. Mary, thank you for the $5 super chat. Get your heart right with Jesus. Amen to that. You know, tomorrow is not promised, whether it's nuclear apocalypse or, you know, you walk off the curb and you get hit by a car. Just always be ready, because you never know when your time is up. Now, they said nuclear explosions can cause significant damage and casualties from blasts, heat, and radiation, but you can keep your family safe by knowing what to do and being prepared if it were to occur, the agency said. Fallout is the most dangerous in the first few hours after the detonation, when it is given off the highest levels of radiation. The preparation document says it takes time for the fallout to arrive back to ground level, often more than 15 minutes for areas outside of the immediate blast damage zone. This is enough time for you to be able to prevent significant radiation exposure. So it takes time for the fallout to arrive back to ground level, often more than 15 minutes for areas outside of the immediate blast damage zone. So again, you got 15 minutes to try to figure out what to do. The document stresses 3 steps: get inside, and stay tuned. It's advised to remain indoors for at least 24 hours or until further instructions are given. Family members should not attempt to reunite with each other outside of the house, outside the house to avoid radiation exposure. People should stay informed through available media channels, which is essential to keep abreast of the situation and safety announcement. Hawaii, Nevada, California, Arizona, New York, they were identified as the most dangerous states to live in during a nuclear apocalypse. And again, drop a 1 if you live in Hawaii, Nevada, California, Arizona, or New York. If you live in those states, they're saying that you have a much lower survival rate. They're saying these are the states you do not want to be in when the nuclear fallout hits. And also, I shared with you specifically just a little while ago the maps that show the blast radiuses of specific cities, where they said there are major targets on these cities for nuclear fallout from Russia. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Anthony Rains. Anything on Utah? We have a nuclear base here, I believe. Repent. I'll take a look at the map with you. I know that this is not the entirety of the list, but these are just some of the ones that they have highlighted. So it says, according to the non-depositorydaily.com, Vermont, so they're saying Vermont is the #1 safest state where you want to be in the event of a nuclear attack, closely followed by Maine, Louisiana, Wyoming, and New Hampshire. So if you are in Maine, Louisiana, Wyoming, and New Hampshire, drop a 3 in the comments. Let me know if you are in the states that they're saying are the safest. If you are in one of the most dangerous, drop a 1 in the comments. None of these dictators will ever take their lives, and the Bible says that the destruction will come from God and not men, neither nor North Korea or Putin or Iran. They will never end their lives, says JP. JP, thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that a ton. Thank you for that comment. I will continue to keep you up to date on everything. And I'm seeing 1s and I'm seeing some 3s. There are some people in the chats that are saying they're in the safest places to be. Kevin, thank you for the $2 super chat. Says he's in East Chicago, Indiana. Yes, Chicago is on the map. I just covered it for you Chicago not looking good if they were to drop one of those nuclear weapons. Now, reading on, it says, if Putin and Russia's adversaries become involved in a nuclear war, there are certain countries that are potentially could offer sanctuary, according to the Express. Now, the number one I've heard is Australia. I've heard the southern hemisphere is where you want to be. The southern hemisphere is likely going to be the safest location. They're saying North America, Russia, all of the north is likely going to be devastated and then hit with the nuclear winter afterwards. Sun will be blotted out. It'll be difficult to grow crops. Very low chance of survival. Now, safe haven places: Antarctica, Iceland, New Zealand, Switzerland, Greenland, Indonesia, Argentina, Tuvalu, Bhutan, Chile, and South Africa. And again, I've heard it's those southern hemisphere nations where you want to be. So again, FEMA releasing an updated guide just recently. The past couple of days, we're hearing saying, hey, U.S., you want to be ready. Now, let's take a look at the states. Nuclear apocalypse maps shows the best and worst U.S. states to live in case of Armageddon. So as I mentioned, we already covered Hawaii is where you do not want to be. And Vermont turns out to be one of the safest locations for some reason, primarily probably because it is not going to be a main target. There are so many other populous states or military sites that they will want to hit as opposed to Vermont. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this article. It says, a new study has revealed that the safest and most dangerous states to live in during a nuclear apocalypse using key survival indicators. The topic of nuclear attacks is increasingly on people's minds due to the popularity of the Fallout series and current global conflicts involving nuclear powers like Russia. According to No Depository Daily, Vermont would be the safest state in the event of a nuclear attack, closely followed by Maine, Louisiana, Wyoming, and New Hampshire. Studies used 18 key indicators grouped into categories such as weapons and security, supplies and survival resources, population densities, medical services, gas and vehicle supplies, climate, access to fresh water, and access to food. JP says, once again, GME and AMC are about to squeeze, and now nuclear threat. Jeff Kittle, $2 super chat. I live 8 miles from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Yes, and again, these are not the complete extensive list, just ones that they have primarily highlighted. And I've done other ones where we have covered maps that have been shown, but this is the most recent updates coming out just a couple of days ago, and pretty detailed information on the ones they're releasing, showing the radius blasts and the extent of the damage, which is it's pretty amazing what they're releasing on this. Now, each state was scored out of 100 based on these factors. At the other end of the scale, Hawaii, Nevada, California, Arizona, and New York have been identified as the most dangerous states to live in during a nuclear apocalypse. So if you're in Hawaii, Nevada, California, Arizona, that is primarily the West Coast. They're saying the West Coast is the most susceptible, basically, to being hit by Russia, China, North Korea with nuclear weapons, and also New York. And also, I share with you on that map some other major cities: Washington, D.C., Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, some other areas. Bing Maps data was utilized to create the maps, calculating relevant facilities in each state. For example, weapons and security is evaluated based on the number of police stations, access to weapons, and fire stations in each state as well. Beyond the looking glass, thank you for the $5 super chat. What about New Mexico and the city of Albuquerque? Kirkland Air Force Base in Albuquerque is home of the largest nuke storage, 2,500 nukes here. Yeah, I definitely think that those would be primary targets as well. Again, not covered though in this maps list. I know that this is not a comprehensive list, but they're going into detail on some of these. And it is pretty wild, the detail that they're showing who would be vaporized, who would suffer third-degree burns. And I believe that third-degree burn area is also where they're saying that the streets would literally be liquefied. The asphalt would turn to magma lava because it'll be so hot, millions of degrees Fahrenheit in certain areas. You got to figure out how to get out. And they're saying you got about 15 minutes to figure out what you're going to do. Most likely, if there's a warning, there might be no warning at all, they're saying, depending on the situation. Now, here's a look at the map. You can see the entire map. The yellow is areas where you have the lowest odds of survival. And they're saying Hawaii, you basically have no chance. You can see Virginia on here. I see J-Ro asking about Virginia. Thank you for the $2 super chat. You can see the various colors on this heat map. Now, purple, dark purple, is some of the safest places to be. So you got Louisiana, Maine, Vermont, and some of the places where you have a low chance of survival. Hawaii, Nevada. We had heard California, Arizona, New York. These are not places you want to be in. And again, people taking into consideration a lot of different factors, not just populous cities, but also military locations, places where nuclear weapons are stored. There are various targets they're saying that will be on the mind of these nations that would want to hit us with nuclear weapons. Now, meanwhile, access to fresh water is determined by the U.S. government climate data on rainfall and freshwater lakes. Vermont clinches the top spot with a score of 72.35 out of a possible 100. The state leads the pack in the United States for food availability and critical factors in survival. It also ranks the second for both weapons and security and supplies and survival resources, reinforcing its reputation as the survival hotspot. Maine secures a second position with a score of 68.28 points. Maine shines with a score of 86.31 for food availability, ranking second in the metric. Now, the Pine Tree State also performed well across the other survival indicators, including ranking fourth nationwide for supplies and survival resources. Louisiana takes the third spot with a score of 65.47 points out of 100, despite scoring low in some metrics, such as 28 for supplies and survival resources and 25th for population density. Louisiana boasts strong credentials when it comes to long-term survival metrics. The state's climate score of 95.12 ranked the third in the U.S., while it offers the best access to fresh water nationwide. Wyoming has been ranked as the fourth best place to survive a nuclear apocalypse with a score of 63.42 out of 100. The state boasts the highest availability of weapons, scoring an impressive 95.66 out of 100 for this category. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Desire. It says, I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm not leaving. Flagstaff, I am not sure if they are on the list. Let me know if they are. The ones that I just shared with you guys, I covered the maps and the states that were released. We saw a lot of cities in Texas. We saw New York, D.C., a lot of cities in California, primary targets. And we've seen a lot of lists being released. And this is just coming out now with more updates. And FEMA is giving updated information to the U.S. on this. So let's go ahead and continue reading on and see what it says here. It says, however, there are harsh winters, climates that could pose survival challenges. New Hampshire is hot on Wyoming's heels, securing the fifth spot with a score of 61.23. The Granite State excels in terms of accessibility to supplies, survival resources, making it an ideal location for pre-apocalypse preparation. And again, if you're wanting to prepare, I've got links to various things to stock up on, and this is probably the time right now with Amazon deals, Black Friday deals. If you wanted to stock up, this would be the time. I also saw people asking about equipment to get radio supplies, microphones. I've got those linked down below as well. The top 10 list rounded off by Montana, Arkansas, Florida, South Dakota, North Dakota. Conversely, some of the most populous U.S. states have the lowest survival ratings. Hawaii is deemed the least suitable for an apocalypse survival, scoring a mere 24.08 out of 100 for survival readiness. If you're in Hawaii, they're saying if nuclear war takes place, you have very low chances of survival. Its remote location makes it logistically challenging to access essential equipment from the mainland. Hawaii scores poorly across almost all metrics, suggesting residents would struggle to secure necessities such as weapons, food, water, medical supplies. On a brighter note, Hawaii's climate ranks second, indicating that the winter survival would be less of a concern. Nevada, known for the battle-born state, has been ranked second worst with a score of 32.05. It came in 50th for access to food and didn't fare well across other key survival metrics. However, it did score positive with 68.42 out of 100 for population density, ranking 9th, suggesting less competition for vital resources in Nevada. California, the Golden State, is the third on the list with a score of 38.24. Its densely populated urban areas and reliance on external resources pose significant challenges for California. The lack of access to fresh water and food, coupled with its high population density, makes it a potentially daunting place to be during the apocalypse. Residents might have a better chance of survival in quieter states than California. Furthermore, California's strict gun laws resulted in the 46th ranking for access to weapons, which could be a disadvantage in the survival situation. Arizona ranks fourth worst, scoring 39.08 out of 100 despite being top ranked for access to medical services. This couldn't make up for the scarcity of their other resources. Now, the desert state scored very poorly for access to fresh water as well, coming in at 49th with a shocking low score of 4.67 without water resources. Survival becomes extremely challenging. New York landed in the 5th spot with a score of 40. The Empire State's chilling climate dragged it down to the 49th place, scoring just 21.32 in the category of climate. Apart from its 6th place ranking for access to medical services, New York found itself in the bottom 10 for nearly every other metric, indicating survival might be very tough if you live in New York. And again, let me know. Drop a 1 in the comments if you live in some of these worst locations they are saying for a fallout to take place. New York, California, Hawaii, Nevada, Arizona. Very, very low likelihood that you will survive. And in addition to that, for those of you hopping on a little bit late, I see we got about 5,000 people on with me live. If you haven't done so yet and you appreciate the updates, please take a second, hit that like button. Again, we are hearing that, take a look at this, maps being released of the explosions that would take place if we were to be hit by nuclear weapons, the ones that are currently being posed by Russia. And these maps, you can see this particular one in Washington, D.C. shows 4 different rings. The first ring would be the fireball blast. Everything within there would be incinerated, and this is a simulation if Russia were to drop its SS-18 Satan, one of its largest ICBM nuclear missiles, on various cities in the U.S., as FEMA has just released updated information on this. So this is nuclear bomb maps showing the impact of Russian weapons on major U.S. cities. You can see it was just released 3 days ago, updated yesterday, and this comes as FEMA has released an updated nuclear guide warning people of what potentially could unfold, what to do. And also, I just shared with you the states, the top states, the worst states, but take a look at these cities that have been mapped out. Absolutely shocking, the detail going into this. New York, how far this blast would reach if this Satan missile was dropped all the way out to Long Island. It's crazy. This outer circle, the impacts would be felt. These inner circles, you're going to get third-degree burns. You could be vaporized. Everything in the gray circle would be caught on fire. Here's one for Los Angeles, how far out this blast would reach if it were to hit the Los Angeles downtown city. Chicago, you can see as well. Not looking good for Chicago, how far this would reach. Here's one for Houston. You can see hitting the epicenter of the city, how far out this would go. One for Phoenix, pretty much engulfs almost the entire city. Philadelphia, you can see how far that blast would reach. In addition to that, San Antonio, pretty much reaching the entire city. It is just engulfed. They've released these maps. San Diego would reach all the way out to Oceanside, all the way down to Mexico. And in addition to that, Dallas going all the way out to Fort Worth. And again, they're saying you probably might have a 15-minute warning, so just keep in mind you and everyone else would have about 15 minutes to figure out what to do to get out of the blast zone. And then if you are in the heart of some of these cities, like I know here in Houston, 15 minutes, I'm not even getting out of the vaporization zone. I'm pretty much a goner, but they have released these, so you got to figure out what you're going to do in that amount of time. And they have got these updated maps for these various cities. And man, some of these just, yeah, you got to figure out what you're going to do and where you are at. So you want to take a look at these and see, where do I live in relation to these maps? And do I have enough time to get out of this circular zone? And also keep in mind, everybody else will likely be notified as well. So everyone's going to be trying to drive out or figure out how to get out of there in that period of time when it is announced or released. They said they hope that everyone could have at least 15 minutes to try to figure out a 15-minute warning what they're going to do. But they said there's also the possibility that there could be no warning whatsoever. And they cover in that update for you that was released from FEMA. And again, these articles are all linked in the description below. I cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it. So you can click these links, go see them, see that these have just come out in the past couple of days with these updates. And they say in there what is going to unfold. They talk about the blasts of light. They talk about how long you got. Who's going to survive, who's not, who's going to be completely vaporized, in what locations the streets are going to become so hot that they're going to turn to magma lava, where things will totally be lit on fire. And if you're far enough out where you're not going to be hit with the radiation that could cause third-degree burns, but you might just have windows blowing out, it's going to reach so far. So you just got to get out of the area. So if you live on the outskirts of the city, if you're in the suburbs, you might be able to, hop in your car and try to drive out of there. You got a little bit of time, as they're saying that after the explosion occurs and you've got the cloud, the plume coming down, the radiation is settling, you still have time. You actually still have time to try to get out of there before the radiation settles, the blasts hit you. They also say if you are indoors, stay indoors. Do not get together with family, they said. Try to stay away from each other, because if somebody has exposure to radiation, they could give it to other people as well. So anyways, like I said, the guide is from FEMA, just released with updates. It's about 300 pages long. I'm not going to go through the entire thing. I've got it linked for you. You can check them out for yourself. There's hyperlinks in these articles. And go ahead and take a look. And again, people are asking about resources, what to do. I would say check out Amazon links that I have down below. Now is the perfect time to buy stuff on Amazon with the Black Friday deals, and you can get like 50% off or buy one, get one, and all this stuff. I'd recommend stocking up now if you haven't already with these maps coming out. And again, this is just my perspective, my opinion. You can do what you want. But I'm of the opinion that I would rather be safe than sorry. I'd rather stock up on supplies and have extras than not be ready and then have something go down. And in addition to that, though, take into consideration where you live, because I'm literally right in the evaporation zone. So if something were to hit me, it were to hit like right now, man, I would be out of luck. So I've got to figure out what we're going to do if they were to target Houston. Now, the other thing is to take into consideration as well is the fact that they're primarily doing it in the epicenter of the cities. They might not necessarily hit in the epicenter. Here in Houston, we've got a lot of oil refineries and things. I would imagine maybe they would try to take out our oil as opposed to going for populous areas. People brought up good points. What about military bases? What about areas where nuclear weapons are stored? I would think that those would be primary targets first before just hitting populous cities. Let me know if you agree, because my thought is if I were going to attack a nation, I would then anticipate the retaliation, and I would want to cripple their ability to hit me back. I want to hit them, take out their ability to hit me back, and then hit them some more. So my thought would be maybe they would hit some military bases, locations that have nuclear weapons. And so that might be a preemptive warning for us that, oh, next they might hit populous cities. That would be my thoughts. But again, also, I've covered for you guys in detail what we've heard would be the process of nuclear war unfolding. There would be some indicators likely that would come up. For example, first, they can't just launch these nuclear weapons at us. We would know. So very likely, as you guys have heard, Russia has launched an anti-satellite nuclear device out in space. If our anti-missile devices in space, in orbit, were to go down, that would be the first indicator that something was awry. That would be the first sign, because they would try to take out those anti-missile devices. That is why it was so alarming that Russia had released those anti-satellite nuclear weapons out in space, because they said that is step one, to take out our ability to see missiles coming in. So that would be the first indicator. Then after that, they would likely launch those missiles in, hopefully hitting us blind. And then the next phase would be EMP blasts. So they said it's very likely as well they would try to cripple our power grid systems, our communications, take everybody out of the ability to know what's going on. So if an EMP hits, All power goes out. Vehicles go down. Any electronic devices, they're fried. Your phones, all of that stuff goes out. That is the next phase of the attack. So that is an indicator, okay, it is going down. And then after that, that's when they said if they wanted to drop nuclear weapons, because just that alone is probably going to be enough to really wreak havoc and devastation on the city. But if they wanted to go the full step, then we would see those nuclear bombs hit. And those are the maps that I just shared with you, how far the devastation would reach. So there are some indicators that would first come up before we would just see bombs starting to hit. It's very unlikely we'd just see a bomb just suddenly explode. There would be a lot of indicators, a lot of signals that would likely need to go off first. So that's the other thing as well. And I've covered that extensively here on the channel. But again, this updated information coming out in the last couple of days. And we are hearing right now that there are potential ceasefire agreements that are taking place. We've heard that Israel and Hezbollah have come to a ceasefire agreement, but I'm hearing in the news that they're saying violations have already taken place multiple times with Hezbollah. Israel has reserved the right to start conflict up again if violations take place. So not a whole lot of faith that this ceasefire is going to last very long. And right now, we're hearing that with Russia and Ukraine, which all eyes right now are on Russia and Ukraine, we are hearing that there could be ceasefire talks underway. Donald Trump is proposing a ceasefire where Russia takes all of the land that they have at this time occupied from Ukraine for a ceasefire agreement. We've heard that Zelensky has said that he is open to a ceasefire agreement if Ukraine is given it is given allowance to NATO. If it is able to join NATO, then they're willing to cede that land to Russia. However, we will see, because we're hearing that that was not a part of the agreement that Trump was proposing, but Ukraine trying to throw in some extra stuff there so that way they can get additional protection. We've heard Ukraine say, NATO or nukes. We need something to defend ourselves so this does not unfold here in the future. So we will see. I will keep you guys up to date every step of the way, but we're hearing ceasefire talks could be coming between Russia and Ukraine with Donald Trump, and we're also hearing that there is a ceasefire right now with Hezbollah and Israel, and we're hearing maybe some other nations or other proxy groups coming from Iran as well, but we will see. But the fighting is still taking place with those other groups, and Iran still potentially could be retaliating. We will see. Now, like I said, though, whatever unfolds, I will keep you guys up to date here on the channel so that way you can see it for yourself. And again, all of these articles that I'm referencing, they are linked down in the description below. So if you want to see these maps, here we got Washington, D.C. We've got the state maps. We've got the articles from FEMA that have been released with updates on what to do. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, Philadelphia, San Antonio, San Diego, and also Dallas. All of these have been covered in detail, showing you where the blast would hit. You got 15 minutes to figure out how to get out. All of this is linked in the description below, so check them out for yourself. And like I said, I will keep you guys up to speed on everything so you know exactly what is taking place. And again, if you appreciate that, do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't done so yet. Help spread this out further across the YouTube platform so more people get the updates. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Why not? I will keep you up to speed on everything. Also, I see somebody hit the join button, became a member of the channel. Thank you for those monthly contributions. I appreciate that a ton. Not necessary, but greatly appreciated as a result. All of these articles that I'm citing, like a book report, down in the description. They'll also pop up in your YouTube feed, just an additional perk for those that hit the join button. Just a way that I say I appreciate your additional contribution. And also resources, as I mentioned, linked down below. So I cite all the sources like a book report, hold myself accountable to the community, and resources for you to stock up on items linked down below. But that is the latest, you guys. I will keep you up to date as more information comes out so that way you know exactly what is taking place. Thank you so much for joining me. I will keep you up to speed, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.